Hey, this is Ren Smith. So, on a group river hike, we come across a sign. It had fish illustrations and warnings in Spanish and in English. It told us we should limit consumption of certain fish.
You're right.
Or
about-
no, was
Like a-
Though we weren't there to cast our poles or anything, it was still curious. Who put the sign there and why?
I'm Veronica Carter. I am currently serving as a council member for the town of Leland, which is the fastest growing town in North Carolina. Prior to that, I guess you could call me a community activist, working with the North Carolina Coastal Federation on their board of directors and being an advocate for environmental justice throughout southeastern North Carolina.
As it turns out, it wasn't just a sign, but the culmination of a story about chemicals, communities, and a river that's always been a source of nourishment, turning into something else. Welcome to Shoresides, where we tell stories about the North Carolina coast. Veronica isn't an activist stereotype.
I'm a retired Army officer, retired federal employee. Initially, the unlikely environmental activist, the retired Army officer, moved here and discovered that they were going to put a landfill next to her late father's house, not too far from it. And that's how I got involved in all of this. If you can't drink the water, you can't grow fresh vegetables, all of that to me is injustice. And I'm always reminded whenever I say the Pledge of Allegiance that the last four words are "and justice for all."
After fighting the landfill, Veronica got involved with efforts to clean up local waterways like the Cape Fear River, and something obvious stuck out: fishing poles.
Literally, I was standing next to Sutton Lake, which is a recreational fishing area, which was made to cool the coal ash ponds next to Duke, with some regulators from Region 4 at EPA. And they're like, nobody fishes here. And someone walked by and said, "Hey, what's biting today?" And I looked at him and went, "Gotta tell you,
It wasn't Veronica's world.
I eat fish. I'm not a fisher person by any stretch of the imagination. Frankly, I find it boring. But I do love to eat fish. Maybe that's one reason why I live on the coast. I love the water and I love to eat it.
But the problem and potential solution seemed obvious.
There were no warning signs. There was nothing.
That's even though the fisher Veronica saw was likely to be back.
The people that were eating, it wasn't because they just like fish. It was because they needed to supplement their protein. These were people who were less fortunate. They just throw a pole in the water and hopefully bring some protein home to the kids and the rest of the family.
In New Hanover County, North Carolina, for instance, where Wilmington is located and where the Cape Fear River passes right through downtown, the nonprofit Feeding America says there are 32,000 food insecure residents. People looking for ways like subsistence fishing to keep the hunger at bay.
The problem was when we talked to regulators, both here in the state, then it was DENR, it became DEQ, and now EPA, we had nothing but anecdotal evidence. We could say, oh yeah, the fish are really polluted. They got to be polluted. And they go, what proof is there? So that's when we said, we need some scientists. We need some help with this. We're going to have to prove to people that, yes, the fish really are impaired. Then look at what kind of alternatives can we give people. We can't tell them not to eat the fish because then they have nothing and offer nothing in return. So that's the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
My name is Elizabeth Shapiro Garza, and I'm an associate professor of the practice at Duke University at the Nicholas School of the Environment. I have about 30 years of experience doing community engaged work and scholarship, both in Latin America and here in the United States. And I currently serve also as the Director for Community Engagement for the Duke University Superfund Research Center. I actually don't have a connection to fishing either, but the way that we got involved was at the Community Engagement Core of the Duke University Superfund Research Center. Our philosophy, our motto is that we find people who are doing good work in the world and organizations that are doing good work related to reducing people's exposure to chemical contaminants in the environment, and then we find every single way possible that we can to support them. So that's what happened in this case as well.
Soon there was a coalition, one focused on the Cape Fear River.
It was the Cape Fear River Watch, the North Carolina Coastal Federation, the New Hanover County NAACP, and a number of other folks, including some local New Hanover County Department of Health, got involved. So there were governmental entities, local entities, as well as nonprofits, church groups, and the like, that we all said we need scientists. And fortunately, Duke has the Community Engagement Corps that is prepared to do just this. And it really took community partners, because if you do know anything about fisher people, they don't give up their fishing holes. They don't like to tell you where they're catching. And if they don't know you, particularly if they don't have a license, they're not necessarily going to admit that they're like actually taking the fish.
The group needed to find ways to connect with them.
We had to get some folks from the community, and Liz and her folks trained them on how to do interviews, what questions to ask. And so that way people would know the person, realize this person was from their neighborhood, they'd seen them before, they could be trusted, and they would get invited to actually truthfully answer the questions, because otherwise they weren't going to give up that kind of information. If just anybody walked up, they think you were a warden or something about to take their fish and find them.
It was all part of developing 3 different studies. Here's Liz.
One was a household survey. So we actually went around to conduct surveys at the household level in Castlehane and other areas that were low income, close to the Cape Fear River, to again ask people what they were eating, how much, how often. We also conducted a bankside survey. So that's actually going up and down the banks where people were fishing, not at the boat ramps, because people who were eating for subsistence usually don't have boats. They're fishing from the banks. So talking to folks there about what they were catching, how much they were consuming, and also information about whether they'd be willing to stop, or what it would take, what kind of changes that they would be willing to make in how they were fishing and what they were consuming. And lastly, the last time that fish had been sampled from the Cape Fear River and tested for contaminants had been 2010. So that was over 10 years before we then, again, we as in this huge group of community partners got together and said, this is not okay. We need to get together and figure out what's in this fish.
They did.
So we sampled at 5 different sites along the Cape Fear River and had those samples analyzed for 4 different heavy metals, and also for PCBs and dioxins. And what resulted was that in those 5 sites, there were high levels of chromium-6, mercury, and arsenic. And that were considered strong, high enough levels to be concerning and to have that they would likely have an impact on human health. And as a result of working really closely with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, 5 different fish consumption advisories were set.
For Veronica and the rest of the group, the advisory itself wasn't enough. People had to see it and be informed about it.
If you've ever tried to navigate any governmental website looking for something, even if you know what you're looking for, it can be a challenge at times. And so we're like, nah, this is the 21st century. Somebody should be able to shoot up a QR code or something and quickly find out if there's a fish advisory in the area, what's good, what's not good, that type of thing. And that's where the New Hanover County really stepped up along with the state to help us get some of those signs. There was really no way to get a fish advisor. Like if you knew that there was polluted fish in this area, and we said, okay, we've got proof now. What do we do? Okay, state, North Carolina, what are you going to do? They didn't really have a roadmap for that prior to all of this. They do now, but it took a while.
These warning signs were important, Liz says, because people weren't just eating the chemicals from the advisory, they were absorbing them.
They're chemicals that are attracted to fat molecules. And once they get into a human's body or a fish's body, they get stuck in the fat. Which is why one of the recommendations that we have for how people can stay safe when eating fish out of the Cape Fear River or other places is to remove the fat. This coalition is actually beyond just having new fish consumption advisories set. We worked really closely together to design and then disseminate a social marketing campaign, which we called Stop, Check, Enjoy, that included messaging around what fish were safer to eat, how much, and a lot of information about keeping yourself safe, like how to fillet a fish so that you would reduce the contaminant load in the fish that you were catching. It included a calendar with recipes. It included a comic book called Cape Fear Kids Go Fishing. It included videos and educational materials, lots of things to be used in schools as well, lesson plans. Church fans, Veronica can talk a little bit more about how we really adapted the messaging that we had about how to keep yourself safe when eating fish from the Cape Fear to the community context.
One of the unique things is we had two chefs as part of our coalition. Dean Neff, who is the owner and chef and a James Beard nominee, actually winner locally, of the Seabird restaurant, and Keith Rhodes, who is a James Beard nominee from Catch, both joined our coalition. They both give countless hours to the community and do lots of good stuff. They not only helped teach people how to properly fillet fish to eliminate that fat, but also gave recipes, because this is the South, this is North Carolina. If we could fry water, we would. We just, if it didn't taste good, we could recommend eat this fish instead of that fish. But if it doesn't taste good, people aren't going to eat it. And we also had a festival where we invited people, particularly the ones that we went into their homes and talked to them, to come back. The two chefs made some food, took the recipes out of their books, made some samples, gave them out to people, talked to folks. We had it in both English and Spanish and also American Sign Language, so that people would actually hear, here's what you did. This wasn't just Duke's study or some other big university study. You guys helped do this. Okay. And now we have signs and we have this information, and thanks to you.
So what are some of the fish to avoid? The big ones.
Oh yeah. If it's a catfish or a bass, stay away from it if it's in the Cape Fear River. General rule of thumb. And of course, people love bass. I love a good catfish, but I haven't eaten one in years because I know what's in them now. And I know there are some alternatives. So good rule of thumb, if it's a catfish or a bass, regardless of where you picked it out of the Cape Fear River, if you want to be safe, throw it back and go find something smaller.
But at this point, scientists like Liz are wondering if even the smaller fish are safe. There's a chemical component out there that's made as a byproduct of Teflon.
One thing that's really hard now is that there have been recent studies that have happened since we did our work together that have shown that there's also a whole lot of PFAS.
That's polyfluoroalkyl substances,
which are forever chemicals, which are also showing up in the tissues and the fat of fish in the lower Cape Fear River. The current advisories from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality are that people really shouldn't be eating fish at all from the Cape Fear River, which is really hard because it is so culturally important. As Veronica was saying, it is also absolutely helping people supplement what they can purchase at stores. And it's vital protein for families in the lower Cape Fear region. The fact that it is highly contaminated with a chemical that is really highly damaging to human health is just tragic, unconscionable. And we know that people aren't going to stop fishing, and they're not going to stop eating fish out of the Cape Fear River. And we are really struggling with thinking about how to communicate with them about how to keep themselves safe when we know that PFAS is in everything. Yeah, it's pretty hard. It's a tragedy, and it's really worthy of focus and concern. It's an environmental justice issue, absolutely, and it should be treated as such.
I'm Ren Smith, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks to Veronica Carter and Elizabeth Shapiro Garza, and to the Duke University Superfund Research Center Community Engagement Corps. Learn more about Shoresides at shoresides.org.